Anything Ghost, number 332. Welcome to Anything Ghost. My name is Wahl, and Anything Ghost is a place where people share their personal paranormal experiences or local ghost legends, and I read them to you on the podcast. If you have one to share, send it to lex@anythingghost.com. We have some really good stories for you, a couple of very long ones, and then I'm going to tell you about a haunted ship, and lastly, One Step Beyond. Okay, the first story comes to us from Daniel in Pennsylvania. The Ring on the Stairs. About 8 years ago, my then girlfriend and now wife and I lived in a small apartment in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. The building was one of those mid-century homes split into 4 apartments. Shortly after we moved in, my wife found an old antique diamond ring on the stairs leading down to our basement. At the time, she was a jeweler at a big corporate store in the now shut-down Chambersburg Mall. She took the ring from where it was and wanted to clean it up because it was very dirty and worn out. A few days went by with nothing out of the ordinary happening, but then one night, I stepped on a sewing needle. It hadn't been there moments earlier when I walked through the same spot. I just played it off as a strange occurrence because we never owned a sewing kit or had any reason to have the needles. Over the course of a few days, we kept finding more sewing needles on the floor, in our bed, and weirdly enough in the bathtub. After about 2 weeks, we stopped finding the needles, but other things began to happen. Things were getting thrown off shelves in the kitchen. Strange shadow figures appeared in our peripheral vision and disappeared when we'd look straight at them. And also there was an overall heavy and foreboding feeling in our part of the property. We were pretty close with our upstairs and next door neighbors, so we asked them if they'd been experiencing anything strange, and they hadn't. At that time, I worked overnight at a diner that has also since shut down, and my wife told me there were multiple occasions when she felt uncomfortable being home alone. So she would sit in the parking lot of my job for hours on end, waiting for me to get home at 4 a.m. One time it was because she saw a woman standing in the doorway between our bedroom and the living room, looking at her. One night we were sleeping in bed, and we both woke up at the same time. We both saw our box fan lift off the floor, rotate about 90 degrees, and set back down all on its own. We came to realize that the presence was mostly antagonizing her, as I'd never had anything happen to me when I was by myself, only to her when she was alone, and then sometimes when I was with her. Well, after a few more days of activity and the unsettling feeling, we found the ring in another place that neither of us had put it, in a kitchen cabinet. We realized that all the activity may have been caused by her taking that ring from where it was. Right then and there, she put the ring back where she found it and apologized for taking it. Instantly, the heavy feeling and activity stopped, and nothing else happened for the last few months of living there. I often wonder if someone else has found that ring since and picked it up and unleashed the same thing we did by taking it, or if it just sits there in the same spot, undisturbed. And that's the ring on the stairs from Daniel in Pennsylvania. Thanks so much, Daniel. And sorry about the white noise in the background. Maybe you hear it. But I have a portable air conditioner going because it's August and it's pretty warm. And because we have central air, but we were ghosted by the AC guy that we were using. We need a fan belt replaced in our old furnace. And he was supposed to come by, and he never showed up. I called him, and he never replied, so got to find another AC guy. But anyway, so I'm using the heck out of this portable AC that I got here. So that's what the white noise is. All right, so moving along, the next story is from Brandi in Oxnard, California. Stories from the Majestic Ventura Theater. In June, I attended the Pacific Coast Paracon, a paranormal convention, hosted at the Majestic Ventura Theater in Ventura, California. It was a fascinating experience featuring guest speakers, a ghost stories tour of the theater, a seance, and a late-night ghost hunt inside the historic theater. The Majestic Ventura Theater was built about a century ago in Ventura. It was built in 1928. This was during the Prohibition period in the United States, where the U.S. banned all sales and consumption of alcohol, for those who don't know. And the theater was quickly passed into the hands of the local mob, where they used it as both a theater for silent films and plays, as well as a gambling hotspot, brothel, and speakeasy. There are rumored to be many deaths and murders at the theater during the time it was run by the mob, and restless spirits still haunt the building today. In the present day, the theater is still in use to host events, concerts, and live shows. Paracon kicked off with a 2-hour tour of the theater, where one of the theater caretakers shared the stories and legends of the theater. The first and most notable was that of a spirit named Chester. Above the main auditorium is a century-old chandelier that's still an original from 1928. To get to the light fixtures, workers have to walk across a wooden plank suspended over drywall. Unfortunately, tragedy befell the beautiful light fixture. Chester, a worker at the theater, lost his balance and stepped onto the thin ceiling, where he promptly fell through and plummeted 100 feet to his death. The exact spot that he landed is now where the sound equipment for modern-day shows and concerts rests. The sound booth, as well as the rest of the theater, is known to be haunted by the restless spirit of Chester. Chester's wife, devastated and distraught after his death, threw herself from the second-story balcony to her death. Her spirit has been seen lingering in the balcony area ever since. I even managed to photograph her while on the theater ghost hunt, though that bit of the story will come later. Another specter commonly seen at the theater is that of the headless prom queen. In the 1960s, it's rumored that one of the local high schools held their prom in the theater. There was a devastating accident involving one of the light fixtures when one of the light fixtures fell from above onto the prom queen, beheading her. Her restless spirit has been seen lingering on the stage ever since, still dressed in her prom finery, minus her head, of course. As an aside, this story is unverified. Researchers have yet to find someone who actually witnessed the event or any newspaper coverage of the situation, though it is undisputed that this ghost has been seen on multiple occasions. Upstairs in the former brothel area, now serving as dressing rooms for the theater acts, there is a room that is constantly padlocked shut. I questioned this as soon as we visited the area, as there didn't appear to be anything of value in the room that would warrant it being locked, save for some random food supplies for the theater crew and performers. But the reason for the lock on the room is that it's a hot spot of paranormal activity, and almost everyone who steps into that room immediately feels a malevolent air It's rumored that this was the room where the mob used to carry out murders. One famous murder in this room involved the death of a woman who frequented the building with her young son. After she was killed, her body was lowered into a back hallway via a trapdoor and pulley system to be disposed of. The antiquated trapdoor and pulley system is still there, and we got a first-hand look at it while touring the building. It's rumored that this was the way the mob moved bodies of their victims out of the building. After the woman was killed, the mob was presented with a problem. Her young son was still in the building, and rather than leave him an orphan and to tie up any loose ends, he too was killed. For many decades, the spirit of this young boy, Joey, has been witnessed throughout the theater. And in recent years, famous Hollywood psychic Patty Negri and a crew of paranormal investigators were able to successfully channel his spirit and help him pass on. He hasn't been seen in the building since. A floor above the old brothel was an area where the mob hung out to smoke cigars and drink. This area is notorious for spirits that don't like it when women in particular enter the floor. We were brought here on tour, and I, being a young woman, immediately felt uncomfortable. I sat in a chair, and the theater caretaker set an EMF device on the table next to me. This particular device was one that I hadn't seen before. It had a row of lights pointing out in a circular pattern around the outside, which would light up depending on the strength and the vicinity of the nearby spirit. Our tour guide was telling a story when I felt a sudden cold breeze shoot suddenly across my lap, sending a chill through me. It was over in a flash. As soon as the cold air passed my lap, the device next to me lit up. Our tour guide asked it questions, and the device would light up in response to the question, until it finally went ominously quiet, and we moved on. I had one other experience on the tour that to this day I still cannot explain. We were brought onto the stage where the tour guide mentioned that an entity liked hanging around the back exit door. We paused there with him to tell a story, and I was nearest to the door. While he was telling the story, I glanced back toward the door and was shocked to see a cloud of purple glittering mist at about shoulder level. As I watched, shocked, it began to condense into a dense black shape, and slowly a human shape emerged until I was looking at a 6-foot-tall, full-bodied shadow figure standing just 3 feet away. I glanced back at everyone on the tour to see if anyone else was seeing this, but their eyes were all on the tour guide. I looked back at it, and it was gone. It took me a moment to compose myself and to shake that off. The next day at the convention proper, while browsing tables set up by vendors, I came across a doll sitting on a table with a sign warning people to keep a distance because the doll was possessed by multiple entities. Next to the doll was a spirit box, a device that can produce simple words spoken from nearby entities. I should note here that up until this day, I didn't actually believe in the validity of spirit boxes, and I thought they were pre-programmed with a dictionary of spooky words that were randomly generated. Intrigued, I stepped closer. The owner of the doll warned me that it didn't like women, but I shrugged it off. I pressed my face up near the doll, and suddenly the spirit box spoke the word redhead. I shot up straight. It was describing me. My hair is a bright shade of dyed red. I looked in shock at the owner and saw that she was shrugging. Her hands had been visible the entire time, and there was no way for her to have typed a message in any device that would say that word. I stared at my boyfriend for a minute next to me and asked him, "Did that seriously say redhead?" And before he could answer, the box quickly said, "Yes." I looked around for cameras or any way that this doll could have been manipulated. I came up with nothing. I looked closer at the doll, and it followed with the word fat. To give the doll credit, it wasn't an insult so much as it was an observation. I'm a larger woman. With it having now given 2 direct observations of me, I was unnerved. The next thing the box said was, "Leave." Then it did it again, like it was stuck on the word. The vendor looked at me sympathetically and said, "I think you should leave." I didn't have to be asked again. I hightailed it out of there and didn't go anywhere near that weird doll again. While on the subject of the weird doll, while walking around, I came across a collection of 3 dolls sitting on a ledge. They didn't seem to be on display or anything. They looked like they'd just been set there to add to the ambiance. 2 of them were normal dolls that you'd see in a child's bedroom, but the third one was an intentionally eerie doll, like something out of a horror movie. I looked at it and shuddered and said, "Creepy," then walked away and thought nothing of it. Of course, I didn't realize at the time that these were all haunted dolls, and that the one that I called creepy had apparently taken it very personally. After the convention was over, it was time for the seance. The creepy doll I had seen earlier was sitting at the sign-in table. My boyfriend and I stared at it for a moment, and then the only way to describe the feeling that came from it was menacing. Then, he suddenly leapt back. He swore that he saw it blink. I shrugged it off because the doll didn't even have eyelids. So how could it blink? Just as I was thinking about that, it started to shake back and forth as if someone was moving it. The 2 of us got out of there real fast and went to sit across the room, leaving it and its creepy stare looking forward blankly. We chatted for a while, and then I suddenly asked my boyfriend if that doll had moved. It had. While it had been facing forward on the table before, it was now undoubtedly facing us. No one had been near the table the entire time. Things got weirder at the seance. I sat in a prime spot directly in front of the medium, and also next to her was one of her pet haunted dolls. Mercifully, it was one of the normal-looking ones that had been sat with the creepy one earlier. Everyone inside the building sat in the seance circle. And despite that, we all heard unexplainable noises during the entire event. Whistling noises, footsteps, knocking, etc. At one moment, I heard a male voice say, "Hey," a few feet behind me. I turned around, and of course there was no one there. Another time I felt a finger poke me directly in the back of the neck, exactly on the spot where I had applied a protection of oil before the seance. There was also a spirit box set up in the circle, and at one point the word demon came out of it. I didn't witness this myself, but I saw my boyfriend next to me jolt suddenly. He had looked up at a balcony and saw a shadowy figure perched on it like a gargoyle. It's important to note here that this balcony was actually a false balcony. There was no room to access it. It was purely decorative. During the seance, I noticed the medium's doll facing me directly. As I watched over several minutes, I noticed its head begin to shake back and forth. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I blurted out to the circle, "Does anyone else see that doll's head moving?" And everyone else within the circle confirmed that they could see it too. After closing the seance, the theater paranormal investigation began. It started out at 10 p.m. and went until well after midnight. We split up into groups with our various investigative devices like spirit boxes, and EMF readers. I personally just used my cell phone camera to take long exposure shots in the darkness, hoping that I would see something. Upstairs on the balcony, I snapped a long exposure shot of the view of the theater, and then one of my boyfriend, and I put the phone back in my pocket. It was only after we got back to the lobby and I was glancing at the pictures that I realized I caught a figure in the photo who was decidedly not on the balcony with us. My boyfriend and I were the only two up there. The photograph showed a fully formed figure, dressed in all white, standing on the opposite side of the balcony. It's worth noting here that there is nothing to stand on from the opposite side of the balcony, only a 32-foot drop. But this figure seemed to be floating in midair. I've sent this photo to Lex along with the story. I included a photo of the other side of the balcony, showing that there is indeed nothing to stand on. Unfortunately, this being a podcast, you can only see them directly, but I think if we all ask Lex very nicely, he'll put them up on the Anything Ghost website. Nope. After looking at the photo, I asked my guide if there were any statues up there, and he just looked at me funny and said, "They don't have statues." I showed him the picture, and he took me back upstairs alone to investigate. Sure enough, there were no statues or anything that could have been mistaken for a ghostly figure. He told me to stand in exactly the spot I took the photo and hold up my phone while he walked along the front of the balcony, telling him to stop in the spot the figure had been. I let him walk for a while, and then once he was in position, I told him. He looked back at me and said, "Here? Are you sure? You're really sure?" I was confused and said, "Yeah, right there." And he just shook his head and said, "This is where she jumped from." That stopped me in my tracks. He was referring to the story I mentioned earlier of Chester's wife, heartbroken by the death of her husband, who jumped to her death, apparently from that exact spot. I had no idea that's where it was. It still gives me the chills knowing that figure I captured could very well have been her, reenacting her deadly jump. At another point during the investigation, we went upstairs into the mob area where the device had lit up when it was sitting next to me. We sat in that same room with the spirit box, and suddenly it started spurting out words so quickly we couldn't make sense of them. After a moment, the words changed into very clear Spanish. The person holding the box looked very scared and swore up and down that they hadn't changed the language and didn't even know if they could change the language. Another little editor's note here is that the Ventura Theater is located in a historically Latino area, and Spanish is commonly spoken here along with English. We all chalked it up to finding an entity that spoke Spanish rather than English. At the close of the night, we again found the doll that I had called creepy earlier and that had turned to look at us. My boyfriend had an EMF reader with him, and as we walked up to the doll, it started to light up red, which is the highest level reading on that meter. He would walk away from the doll and the lights would turn off. Then we'd walk back to the doll and they would light up red again. We were talking amongst ourselves, wondering if the doll somehow had an EMF generator inside, when the EMF reader abruptly dropped to 0, as if whatever had been inhabiting the doll had left. After that, we couldn't get another reading again. I've also sent a photo of this exact doll in question with the EMF reader fully lit up. Overall, my experiences at the Pacific Coast Paracon are wildly unexplainable. From the words spoken from the spirit boxes, to the seance, to the unexplainable noises, it was all unforgettable and decidedly haunting. More events happened while there, but to mention them would take forever. and I feel like these ghostly tales have gone on long enough. So thank you for the podcast, Lex. We all enjoy it very much. I hope to come back with more stories to share as time goes on. But until then, take care. And that was a great long story from Brandi in Oxnard, California. And thank you so much, Brandi, for putting that all together. And indeed, I will post those pictures on the Anything Ghost website and the VIP website. And before I move on, if you are interested, Anything Ghost has been around since 2006. We're celebrating 20 years this year. And I have a VIP website that has every single episode available. But there's a one-time membership fee. And you pay that, and you have complete access to all of those stories. There's, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds or thousands. I don't know. But anyway, you go to anythingghost.com and then go to Join VIP. Anythingghost.com, Join VIP. And I'm going to drop in a song I wrote a few years ago. I don't remember when I wrote it. I was looking for something on my computer and I came across it. But here it is. It's called But No One Was There. And next up to bat is a story from Sonny. It's a long story, which is good. It's from Sonny in Edgewood, New Mexico. And it's called My Encounter at the Haunted Hotel. My wife, Beck, sent in a story to you last year. She promised more stories from us. So this is my story. This story took place in 1998 at an unknown town in an unknown hotel in Virginia, somewhere between Newport News and Quantico. At the time, I was working for our government, and I had to report back to Quantico for my new assignment with the State Department. It was winter, and originally I was supposed to have landed at Ronald Reagan Airport and gone to nearby D.C., but due to heavy snow, we were rerouted to land in Newport News, Virginia, later that evening. This significantly altered my travel plans. It was a late evening flight, and I had several bags to lug around with me. I was still new to the area and unfamiliar with the state or the existence of Newport News. On the spot, I discovered that Newport News was somewhere south of Washington and Quantico. I was still very young, only 22 years old, and did not take into account that the government regularly adjusts for heavy snowfall and time delays. In my mind, I was frantic that I was going to be reprimanded for not reporting on time. So I set myself on a self-incurred mission to charge forward through the deep snow and make my report time. In 1998, not many people, to include me, had a cell phone, nor did I have email access that was readily at my fingertips, as we do today. I, of course, had the duty office phone numbers of my place of work printed on the documents I carried, but to a young military man, it made way more sense for me to sacrifice my safety and show up on time rather than call. Plus, in those days, you had to have a phone calling card, which I did not, or a whole bunch of quarters. As a child, my parents raised me on a ranch in the mountains of northwestern New Mexico. I was very accustomed to snow driving, so the weather didn't concern me. So, with the combination of being young and invincible and a self-imposed rigid timeline, I rented a car and charged forward to Quantico, Washington, on the dark, snowy highway. Approximately 10 minutes on the road, I find myself driving with slow-moving traffic at approximately 20 miles an hour or less. I remember several standstills before the highway patrol shut down the highway and redirected everyone into the first available off-ramp. At that point, I do not remember the name of the town I pulled into, but I remember I drove around and checked several motels and found they were all full. For some reason, I remember thinking to myself that the main character of a comedy movie I loved told his acquaintance that he immediately called the Braidwood Inn. After that night, I wondered why I didn't have the Braidwood Inn's phone number. At that time, there was no Google, and I did not own a cell phone, so I had to drive from hotel to hotel, and it took a while. I finally found one and checked in, and I do not remember the name of it. The attendant told me there were only a few rooms left, on the bottom floor, but I didn't care. I do remember that I had to park my rental car quite a ways from the hotel and schlep my luggage through the snow. They had an open bar/restaurant where I had a bite to eat and finally retired to my room. It was a typical 90s hotel room and smelled mildly of cigarette smoke. Across from the bed, it had a wooden TV cabinet in which the doors slid open from the center, and then they had to slide back into the sides of the cabinet. It was made of that thin wood that if you hit it, it would make a high-pitched bang, and the wood would vibrate and rattle a little when you opened the doors. I finally settled in and began to relax, finishing the rest of my dinner. Once finished, I turned off the TV and closed the cabinet doors before I laid down to bed. I turned off the light and found myself staring at the alarm clock's display, due to not being overly tired, as I had slept on the long plane ride back into the U.S. I desperately tried to make myself go to sleep, as I had a big day coming up. I always sleep in just a pair of boxers, and I always lay on my side, usually with a single blanket. I am a heavy sleeper, and it always takes a few seconds of shaking if I am to be awakened in the middle of the night, and back in those days, I would sleep with my headphones on the pillow next to me so I could hear some background noise to help me go to sleep. I turned on some music and laid the headphones down, but a few minutes into listening to my favorite group, Pearl Jam, I could hear the sound of the wooden doors of the TV cabinet slowly rolling open. I raised my head off the pillow and could see the doors rolling out of the cabinet, and it made a clunk sound as it reached the ends of the track railings. My eyes had adjusted to the dark, and I clearly saw the doors move out and were now fully extended. My heart nearly skipped a beat as I rapidly sprung out of my bed and quickly assumed the pugilistic stance, ready to engage in battle with whoever was in my room messing with my TV. As I'm writing this, I'm laughing to myself about how ridiculous I probably looked as I stood alone in my room, wearing my boxers, with my clenched fists as I grabbed the TV remote as an additional weapon. I'm sure I woke the neighbors, yelling and screaming obscenities and kicking the invisible intruder. I remember that I had a huge dump of adrenaline, and all my senses were on high alert. I quickly flipped on the lights and backed into the couch, falling into the seat. I had to force myself to calm down. Gradually, I did calm down, until I finally convinced myself that I was just imagining things and that the TV doors rolling out did not happen. I had always thought that trying to make yourself believe that a ghost was not real or not present was a weird self-soothing trait that we possess. Nowadays, through experience and watching ghost shows, I've learned to control that fear emotion by accepting that ghosts are out there. Since then, I have encountered several ghosts, but managed to control those fears honorably. Not on this night, though. Oh, by the way, that was my dog sneezing in the background, if you heard it. After a few minutes, I closed the TV cabinet and reluctantly crawled back into bed. I closed my eyes, but I was still on high alert. I turned my headphones back on and slowly fell asleep about an hour later. Back then, I had a portable CD player. I continued to listen to my favorite rock group as I lay in bed, singing along to calm myself. I woke up a bit later and found the player had stopped, due to it having gone through all the songs and it auto-stopped. Groggy, I placed another disc into the player when I felt an undeniable sensation of several fingertips running down the outer side of my calf muscle. I kicked the sheets off and was once again in the karate stance in the middle of the room, clutching and swinging my CD Walkman as a weapon. I quickly lunged at the light switch on the wall and flicked it on. At that moment, I don't know why, I didn't look at my calf muscle area as I was once again amped up and kung-fuing the heck out of the empty darkness. I'm sure my neighbors, too, were awakened by me yelling and challenging the ghost to a pugilistic duel right there in the middle of my hotel room. After some time, I went through the same calm-down process, but this time, I remembered that as I lay there again, it was well after 1 a.m. Being in the military, I self-talked myself, berating myself to quit being a chicken. I forced myself to remain in bed. When I noticed, the TV doors were back out. It sent another surge of adrenaline and my heart was racing. I remember being mentally uncentered and my mind ran without limits, questioning myself if I had reclosed the doors. I dropped to the floor and knocked out a couple of set of push-ups to help calm me down. I finally settled down again, but was still somewhat shaken. I remembered I had left the lights on as I crawled into bed. I placed another CD into the player and pushed play. I laid in my bed for a couple of songs, but I was still on edge. I remember that I turned back on my side, but the opposite side that I typically lay on. Seconds later, I felt the same undeniable sensation of fingertips running down the outside of my opposite calf muscle. Again, I leapt out of bed and fought an invisible, non-existent person in the room. I remember back in those days, I was very much into kickboxing, so as I was fighting this non-existent person, I was probably making very loud, forceful exhales, kind of like Kempo. Ki-yi! I'm sure my neighbors could hear me and were probably thinking, what the heck is going on in there? I finally settled down and grabbed my Walkman as a weapon, cocked back and ready to strike with it. Still shaking, my mind could only focus for me to walk immediately out of the room, as is. Keep in mind that I am one of those persons that prefers to sleep in undies only. It was extremely cold, and it was very late. I was ramped up and scared out of my mind, shaking from fear. I walked out of that room. I power-walked down the hall, cursing loudly toward the front desk, where I was met with a male receptionist. I did not care who saw me power-walking nearly naked down the hallway. I loudly demanded a new room. And without hesitation, the receptionist handed me a new room key and said the room was upstairs. He asked me if I wanted him to grab all of my belongings, and I said yes, as I power walked away to the elevators. Thankfully, it was very late, and no one was around. I rode the elevator to the top and quickly found my new room. I immediately turned on the TV and turned on all the lights. I lay shivering from fear under my new bed sheets. Only then did I inspect my calf muscle areas on both of my legs and found very distinct red lines running down the sides of both of my outer calf muscles. It was even more distinct that I could see the dry skin on top of the redness that made the scratches very distinct. In colloquial language, this is called ashy, and in my language, Navajo, this is called shizzy. Minutes later, a brisk knock on my front door made me jump out of bed with a resurgence of new adrenaline. I whipped the door open and yelled, "What?" I quickly found it to be the front desk receptionist. The receptionist quickly handed me my belongings, and I slammed the door. I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was rather still in shock, and at that time did not really know how to control my fear of the supernatural, so it all came out as anger and embarrassment. Back then, I didn't question why the receptionist was so eager and ready to put me into another room. Now it's all clear to me that they most likely had many guests experience the same ghost regularly. I remember as I left, the new front desk staff offered me a couple of free days to stay as a complimentary bonus. I remember that I angrily refused, thinking that I would never be in the area ever again. Little did I know that I later would land in Newport News several more times throughout my career. The next morning, I remember that I sprang out of bed still feeling scared. I did not sleep for very long in the new room. That was when I got another knock on the door. I opened it, and it was the front desk staff who again offered me a free night's stay. I angrily responded and quickly collected my belongings without taking a shower. I was still afraid. I mashed my hat on lower than normal and power walked with all my luggage to the breakfast area, grabbed a coffee and a bite to go, and exited the haunted hotel. I remember walking in the snow and cold and had to stop. I turned around one last time to look at the hotel and sighed a huge relief that I had survived that encounter. I loaded up my car and charged toward Quantico. In the next few days, I remembered that encounter bothered me and interfered with my training. I remembered having to take breaks and tell my instructors that I was feeling sick and needed breaks. I was not sick, but still troubled. I never told anyone of that encounter for years until I met my awesome wife. We started watching ghost shows together, but it was several more years later before I remembered that encounter. That was when she asked me about any ghost encounters I had had before I met her. I remembered the embarrassment and suppressed that memory for years, until my wife encouraged me to tell her, then to write it out to your awesome show. Nowadays I laugh at the entire event and remember how the big bad Marine was absolutely scared out of his mind. Thanks for the great show, Lex. We've been loyal listeners since 2019 and are listening to archived episodes now in the VIP group. Keep up the great work. Hopefully we can both contribute more stories in the future. And that was a great story from Sonny in Edgewood, New Mexico. Thank you, Sonny, for putting that together and sending it in to Anything Ghost, and thanks to your wife for encouraging you to do so. All right, and next up, The Curse of the Haunted Ship Squando. The events in this story took place between 1855 and 1887. The ship was named the Squando. It was a tall ship, known from that era, and it was also known as a bark ship, as opposed to a full-rigged ship. This had mostly to do with the placement and types of sails used. Barks, B-A-R-Q-U-E-S, or it could be B-A-R-K-S, were known as the workhorses of the ocean because they were used mostly for cargo and trading. The Squando was a fast bark ship, and it had been built in 1855 in Rockland, Maine. At the time, it was valued at $72,000, and it hailed out of Nova Scotia as a merchant ship. On June 8, 1857, with just 2 years on the sea, while on a voyage from New York to Quebec, Canada, news arrived that the Squando had run ashore on Beaver Island between Halifax and Cape Conzo. The keel was knocked out, the rudder was hanging, and it was full of water. It had been stripped and was expected to be a total loss. The owner was hoping to get $9,000 of insurance money from it. Within 2 months, by August of 1857, the ship had been moved from Beaver Island and brought to nearby Ship Harbor. There, a shipbuilder and captain, Frederick Curry, bought it. He refitted it and salvaged it, and soon the Squando was sailing on the high seas again. But the Squando had a cursed existence, and here are a few things that happened. While the Squando was at a port in San Francisco, California, the captain, supposedly believing that the first mate had intimate relations with his wife, killed and beheaded him with an axe. The captain and his wife were arrested. He was tried and hung, and his wife got a lengthy prison sentence. A new captain was then hired and took over the Squando. But soon, he ended up being killed by a mutiny of 9 sailors. On February 20th, 1882, the body of a Squando shipmate, George Dunn, washed ashore at Guano Islands. The ship had left for South America 9 months prior. The captain and steward were suspected of murder and placed under arrest. In 1886, the Squando was in Aspinwall, and while there, the captain and 3 sailors died of yellow fever. But the ship continued on its way and sailed to its destination of Bathurst, Canada, on October 9, 1886. On arrival, the ship's staff was quarantined immediately, and there was no further spread, and the Squando itself was fumigated. After their quarantine, the sailors and master wanted no part of the ship and left. It was announced at that time that the Squando would be put up for sale, but the announcement ended up being postponed when they found it was impossible to get watchmen or workers who were willing to stay on the ship, and that was because the first-hand stories that the ship was haunted. I'll tell you about those stories in a bit. By November of that year, 1886, the Squando was cleared for travel and considered safe of yellow fever. It was loaded with merchandise and was to set sail for Barcelona, Spain on November 13th. But on that day, a bad storm moved in. The wicked gales of the storm broke the ship's chains and sent the vessel ashore, where it was embedded in the sand. It remained marooned there for months, all through the next summer of 1887. The Squando was abandoned in the sand for so long that locals began talking about some ghostly lights coming from the broken-down vessel, and the other stories from sailors and watchmen came to the forefront as well. Here were some of the ghost stories. So before I begin, I want to note that it got a little confusing in this area where they were telling the ghost stories, so I might be incorrect as to who was telling the what they saw or what they experienced. but this is the best that I could figure out. When the Squando had first arrived at Bathurst before the storm pushed it ashore for the last time, the master and sailors who sailed her there said the ship was haunted, and they left quickly after their quarantine. The sailors said this: "One night, 2 men lay down to sleep in the cabins, one in the forward cabin and the other in the after cabin. The man who was sleeping in the aft arose during the night. He heard a terrible commotion going on in the forward cabin. He called out to his mate and asked him the cause of the noise. Receiving no reply, he went to the forward cabin. Once there, he saw stretched on the floor the body of his companion. Finding that he could not arouse him from his faint by shaking him, he dashed a pitch of water in his face. This brought him to his senses. When he asked how he got out of his bunk, he said he could only remember some invisible hands had thrown him out. The next night, the 2 men walked on the deck all night to see if the noises were caused by some practical joker from the shore. No one came aboard, but the noises were distinctly heard in the cabin, and it sounded as if a struggle was going on. The master of the ship also persisted in saying the ship was haunted. He had his clothes torn off when he was sleeping at night by invisible hands. One night he pulled the clothes over his head, and no sooner had he done so that they were stripped off him to his very feet. After the sailors and the master hightailed it from the ship, the government hired 2 watchmen to look over the boat. The watchmen claimed they saw a headless man walking in the cabin, and that their bedclothes were pulled off, and saw handspikes flying around the deck. They also felt cold, clammy hands touch their faces, and would hear a voice telling them to leave. And by the way, I didn't know what they were, but handspikes that they saw flying around were used to get leverage on heavy items. Some were poles, and some were metal or wood spikes. By the end of the summer in 1887, the Squando ended up being bought by Captain Leal for $40. That's around $1,500 today. He hired some men to help him tear the ship down, with plans to sell it for parts, adding that he expected to clear a nice little sum. As a side note, while they were tearing down the Squando, one of the masts fell on top of one of Captain Leal's boats, causing injuries. That behind him, the work was done, and the Squando was gone. It would no longer sail the seas with its haunted decks and its violent curse. But while they were tearing the ship apart, some of the men found, stuck between some of the timbers, a couple of pots and an axe. So perhaps the ghost and the cursed went down with the ship. But rats do jump a sinking ship. So let's hope those spirits weren't attached to any of the masts, lumber, sails, handspikes, beds, pots, or that axe. So that's something I put together from a bunch of articles I found, and I thought it was really interesting. I came upon it by accident, and it just kept expanding. I thought it was really cool. I think I looked up haunted ships and found this. Oh, and by the way, I found online about Squando. It's kind of considered an urban legend, the whole San Francisco thing where the guy was beheaded and stuff. And I honestly couldn't find any news articles about the Squando ever being in San Francisco, so that part might not be true. But every single bit of every story I found about the Squando online says it took place 1890, 1891. And all these articles I found go from 1857 to 1887 when it was finally disassembled. So whatever's online I don't think is correct, but at least the years. But anyway, that was the Squando, the haunted boat. And up next, I'm going to once more share another One Step Beyond episode And again, that show was from the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, and it had, I think, 3 years it ran. But the stories were supposedly based on true stories. So here's one for you, and it was from March of 1960. And it was season 2, episode 25, The Haunting.
Lovely Tudor house in the English countryside will tomorrow be the scene of a wedding. The bride will come down those stairs, and she will join the bridegroom here by this fireplace. It should be a joyous occasion, and yet the bright June sunshine cannot quite burn away the shadow cast by a recent death. The death of one who tomorrow would have smiled warmly on the wedding couple in his role of best man. Due to the shock and pain of this sudden loss, the church has considerately permitted the ceremony to be held here, instead of the chapel 2 miles away. But if the church, or Scotland Yard, knew all that is to be known about the bridegroom, there would be no wedding. It all began with 2 old friends on a last bachelor holiday. A holiday in one of the most breathtakingly beautiful spots on earth, the spectacular Swiss Alps. What better place, what better way for a man to have his last taste of absolute soaring freedom? But part of the exhilaration of this thrilling sport is the undercurrent of danger, the ever-present threat of accident, the dizzy leap into space. This pure white world seems an unlikely place for murder. But watch these 2 men closely.
One of the skiers, Peter, falls into a snow crevasse.
Colin! Colin!
Lying on his side, Peter calls out to Colin.
Peter! Colin! Peter! Peter, you all right? Except for this blasted leg.
Oh, it's lucky I saw you go over.
Here, have you got the rope? Yes. One good snow and I might have been here till the Edelweiss blew. Here, catch. Right, got it.
Peter tosses his rope up to Colin.
Now just hold on there a minute and I'll have you out of it. Let's hope so.
Colin works on unraveling the rope.
Oh, come on, man. Knot it, knot it. It's a good thing Nancy can't see you. For your own sake, I hope you show a little more efficiency as a bridegroom next week.
Colin begins to get angry as he ties the rope to a rock.
Oh, come on now, Colin. Can't a man lying on death's ledge be allowed a little bit of humor? The trouble with you, Colin, is you're so confoundedly sensitive, always reading innuendos into things. You don't have to tell me what you're thinking. It's written all over your face. You're thinking, Nancy again. As if he knew what she liked better than I do. Isn't that right? Well, come on, man. What are you waiting for?
He continues glaring down at Peter, and then frowns, unties the rope from the rock, and throws it down the crevasse.
Colin! Colin, for the love of God, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Colin, for the love of God, don't leave me here,
Colin! Despite Peter Duncan's untimely death in the Swiss Alps, Colin's wedding date was not changed. And so, a few days later, a properly shaken bridegroom arrived at one of England's more stately mansions.
Afterwards, we became separated. Eventually, when I got back to the lodge, Peter wasn't there.
Colin is explaining what happened as his bride, Nancy Lloyd, was being fitted with her wedding dress.
Then, of course, I realized something pretty drastic must have happened. So I organized a search party. But then this snowstorm suddenly came down.
How awful. How simply awful.
Yes, well, I think you know the rest. By the morning, when we finally found him...
Was it true? Was he really frozen?
Gillian, darling.
I'm sorry to upset you, Nancy. I realize I shouldn't have explained it in quite so...
In such detail, perhaps not. I suppose you stayed for the funeral.
Oh, yes. You know, the chapel in the village. It seemed the simplest way.
Were you the only one there?
The only one that... But I told you, Nancy, I wasn't there. I lost him.
No, darling. I mean, at the funeral.
Oh. No. His father and sister came from London, and then there were other friends from the lodge.
Nancy's mother, Elizabeth, is also there, as well as the tailor and a child.
So sad to think of poor sweet Peter.
Miss Little, won't you come downstairs for a cup of tea? Come along, Gilead.
They all exit the room, leaving Colin and his bride alone.
Was he frozen solid?
Gilead!
Colin is seated, and Nancy walks to the door and closes it.
Colin, I realize what a strain this all has been.
Colin gets up and paces the room.
So it would seem to have been to you.
Well, of course. I was very fond of Peter.
Indeed?
Well, you know that I was.
Oh, yes, I believe you were.
Do you like my dress?
Yes, it's quite beautiful.
I'll just take it off. I'll only be a moment.
Nancy exits the room through a mirrored door.
Nancy, you seem to be bearing up remarkably well.
I do?
Yes, no tears. Unless you shed them all.
But, darling, I didn't cry.
Oh? Why not, Nancy? Why not?
Nancy re-enters the room in a bathrobe.
Colin, I'm afraid I don't understand what's on your mind.
Should there be something?
Well, I don't know whether there should be, but I certainly sense something.
Oh, please, Nancy, please, be honest about it.
Honest about what?
About Peter. You know perfectly well you were more than just fond of him. In fact, if you felt you hadn't been obliged to be married to me,
Colin!
you'd have... Well, it's true, perfectly true. I'm not quite so unobservant as you and Peter may have thought.
How can you stand there and insinuate... Well, that's ridiculous. Peter never meant anything to me, except that he was your friend. And if he hadn't been your friend, well, I don't think we would have exchanged a half-dozen words. Are you suggesting for 1 second that Peter and I...
I'm not suggesting anything.
Colin.
Well, you two always seem so...
So what?
Devoted.
Devoted? What do you mean?
Nothing, Nancy, nothing.
Colin storms out of the room. Nancy, looking confused, slowly closes the door.
Do have some of these fresh strawberries the Bromley sent. It was very thoughtful of them, don't you think?
Oh, yes, it was.
Colin and Nancy's mother, Elizabeth, are having tea.
Oh, my dear, my poor boy.
What's that then?
Oh, well, what I mean to say is, here have I been prattling on like a fool, and all the time I planned something so differently. Colin, oh, this has been such a nasty business for you, and such a shock.
Yes, of course it was. I can't deny that.
Well, it just doesn't seem fair.
Not fair?
Well, I mean, after the beastly time you had after the war. Goodness me, you certainly had your share of emotional stress. Oh, dear, I'm not putting it very well, am I? But you do understand.
Oh, yes, Elizabeth, I understand very well indeed. I do quite understand what you're trying to say. You're referring to my crash in the Spitfire in England's finest hour. And
Colin!
when I became a patient in a hospital for mental disorders, a prize patient.
Of course, after that long, trying time, and now this.
But I can hardly see any connection, Elizabeth.
Well, I'm simply saying, dear, that it doesn't seem fair for you to have so many emotional upsets.
Oh, I see.
I mean, Peter Duncan was your best friend.
Yes, of course he was.
Believe me, the first thing that Nancy said when we heard... let me see, your letter came...
Well, what was the first thing that Nancy said?
Yes, of course. Well, she read it, and then there was a very long pause, and she said, "Oh, no. Oh, no, Mummy. Oh, no."
I see.
Well, then I took it and read it. And all I could see was Peter's lovely smile. And his dashing way. He was such a dear, dear, naughty boy. No, it's just too much to accept. Too much. As Nancy said.
What did Nancy say?
Well, Nancy said it was positively ironic.
Ironic?
What else could you call it? Big, strong man like Peter, who'd come through the war without a scratch, sound and whole, and both physically and... Oh, dear. Well, anyway, I suppose you must get very upset when you think about him alone at the last, with no one... Oh, my dear, I'm just turning the knife in your heart with every word. Oh, I am so sorry. Do forgive me.
It's evening. Colin is seated outside the house. Nancy comes outside and sits down next to him.
Colin, love, listen to me. I've been so upset during dinner, and even after. Well, as a matter of fact, ever since this afternoon when you walked out like that.
Please, darling, may we forget about it?
But I don't really see how we can forget about it, darling. After all, we're getting married tomorrow. And yet there's this barrier between us. Colin, love, if I said anything to possibly...
No, you said nothing, darling.
But I must have. Colin, do you love me?
You know I do.
And you must know that I love you. Yet I feel that I am to blame for upsetting you because I know you so well. And I know how sensitive you are. And I know how much Peter meant to you.
Please, darling, maybe just not talk about Peter anymore.
Of course not, of course not. But I do want you to know, darling, that we are not mere childhood sweethearts anymore. Well, all last year, ever since the war, I've watched you come back. And I've watched you come back to me after... Well, sometimes, Colin, I was even afraid that you would never get back to yourself even. So, darling, please don't withdraw. Don't withdraw again. And don't let's have any secrets.
What secret do you mean?
Well, it occurred to me that since that outburst today, that you were probably trying to tell me, well, since the ordeal you've been through, that you would rather postpone the wedding.
Postpone it? You mean call it off?
Please believe me, darling, it doesn't have to be tomorrow. I mean, we could wait a bit longer. A week or a month, even.
I see. So that's what you really want.
He stands and turns his back to her.
Well, no. Colin, that is not what I want. I want you. That's all I want. And I want you to be happy.
Well, darling, please marry me now. If I felt I'd ever lose you, I'd rather be dead myself. What is it, my dear? What is it?
I don't know, really. I suddenly felt a chill. A peculiar chill.
It's nothing, darling. It's just the night air.
Oh, Colin, I do love you, darling.
The couple embraces, and the scene fades. It's now morning, and Colin is brushing his hair. The butler enters.
Thank you, Wilson. Everything all set now?
I think so, sir.
Good.
The butler picks up the hairbrushes, but suddenly drops them.
Excuse me, sir.
What's the matter, Wilson?
It's just that these are so icy cold, sir.
The brushes, huh?
Well,
What are you talking about?
See for yourself, sir. It's just as if they'd been left out in the snow all night, sir.
Oh, nonsense, Wilson. You've been left out in the snow all night, I think.
Colin stands and straightens his suit before the mirrored door and pretends not to be bothered by the incident. But he looks concerned.
When are they coming, Aunt Elizabeth? Aunt Hazel and Uncle Fred be here? Aunt Liz?
Oh, Gillian, do contain yourself. The whole family will be here soon. Soon enough, indeed. Come and help me with these flowers.
Gillian, the flower girl, sees the bride's bouquet and picks it up.
Oh, how beautiful. Oh, how heavenly. Colin, look. It's a bridal bouquet. Just arrived.
Oh, Jill, they're quite lovely.
Gillian, come and hold this for me, please.
Yes, Aunt Elizabeth.
Gillian hands the bouquet to Colin, and he places it back down on the table.
Colin, let me see how handsome you are.
Yes, dear.
Oh, marvelous. You should get married every day.
Aunt Elizabeth,
Yes?
look what's happened to the flowers.
What? What?
They're frozen stiff.
Oh, that fool florist. He must have left them in the refrigerator all night. I swear, they're like ice.
But Aunt Elizabeth, they weren't. Just a moment ago when Colin and I...
Well, don't worry about it, Elizabeth. They'll thaw out in a minute or two.
Colin, the flowers will be all right. Don't let it upset you.
I'm not upset.
Oh, yes, you are. It's only natural. All bridegrooms are nervous. Oh, but Cookie will make it all right. Cookie's simply marvelous with catastrophes.
Elizabeth takes the flowers and exits. Gillian approaches Colin.
They're frozen stiff.
Colin begins pacing. He's visibly disturbed now. He pulls back a sheer curtain and peers out a window. The window becomes frosted.
I'm really glad it's just a small wedding, aren't you? There'll be all the more cake. Why, that's wicked. I didn't think anyone could do that, except in the winter. When it's cold. Colin, please show me how.
Please, Gillian, would you leave me alone for a little while?
I'm sorry.
Gillian exits. Colin takes one look at the window, then walks away in a daze. He stands at a grand piano, looking back at the window. An elderly man walks into the room and asks to sit at the piano.
Oh, I beg your pardon, sir, but if you'll permit me...
Oh, yes. Please.
I understand it won't be long before the guests begin to arrive.
Colin quickly exits the room.
Why don't you tell me how you do it?
We now see the bride and Gillian walking down the stairs. Gillian is carrying her train, and they walk down the aisle.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered together here in the sight of God and in the face of this congregation to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony. Wilt thou have this woman to thy wedded wife, to live together after God's ordinance in the holy estate of matrimony? Wilt thou love her, comfort her, and keep her in sickness and in health?
I will.
And forsaking all other, keep thee only unto her, so long as ye both shall live.
I will.
Wilt thou have this man to thy wedded husband, to live together after God's ordinance in the holy estate of matrimony? Wilt thou obey him and serve him, love, honor, and keep him in sickness and in health, and forsaking all other, keep thee only unto him, so long as ye both shall live?
I will.
Who'll give this woman to be married to this man?
I do.
After Colin said "I will" earlier, a cold wind blew through the room. Elizabeth asked the butler to shut the door.
I, Colin, take thee, Nancy, to my wedded wife,
I, Colin, take thee, Nancy, to my wedded wife.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Till death do us part.
Death do us part.
According to God's holy ordinance.
According to God's holy ordinance.
And therefore I plight thee my troth.
And therefore I plight thee my troth.
Yet another cold wind blew through the house.
I, Nancy, take thee, Colin, to my wedded husband.
I, Nancy, take thee, Colin, for my wedded husband.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love, cherish, and to obey.
To love, cherish, and obey.
Till death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance.
To death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance.
And therefore I give thee my troth.
And therefore I give thee my troth.
3. With this ring I thee wed. With my body I thee worship.
With this ring I thee wed. With my body I thee worship.
And with all my worldly goods I thee endow.
And with all my worldly goods I thee endow.
In the name of the Father.
In the name of the Father.
And of the Son.
And of the Son.
And of the Holy Ghost.
And of the Holy Ghost.
Amen.
Amen.
I now pronounce you man and wife.
While the new couple kissed, Nancy pulled back and got a frightened look on her face. She regained her composure and looks around. They exit via the aisle. The house is now full of people during the reception. We see Colin heading back to the bedroom. Nancy is in the bedroom. She's dressed nicely with a hat, but she looks distraught as she slowly packs a suitcase for their honeymoon. Colin enters the room.
You ready, Nancy? What is it, darling? What's wrong?
Nothing.
Yes, there is.
No.
He holds her.
Yes, Sonny, please tell me what is it? What's the matter?
Let me go! Let me go! I'm freezing! Please let me go! I can't stand it!
Nancy! Nancy!
She exits via the mirrored door and locks it. Colin shakes the door handle, and the mirror begins frosting over.
Nancy! Nancy! Nancy!
Soon, the guests will become impatient to see the newlyweds, to wish them well on their honeymoon. But there will be no honeymoon. Instead, there will be long years spent in the Veterans Hospital, in the psychiatric ward, during which Colin Chandler will mumble his confession of murder over and over again. The psychic phenomenon which brought this about, well, it's called a poltergeist, which ordinarily means a mischievous ghost. But in this case, it was a ghost that brought terror, cold terror.
And that's it for Anything Ghost number 332. thanks for dropping by. And I guess I got nothing further to say other than I'll talk to you in show number 333. Keep safe and take care.